You're exhausted, aren't you? Bone-deep, soul-crushing, never-ending exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to cure. So you try everything. Meditation apps, vacation days, self-care routines, digital detoxes, yoga retreats. But somehow you wake up just as tired as before. The exhaustion isn't in your muscles. It's in your mind, your spirit, your very capacity to exist without the grinding anxiety that something, somewhere, demands your attention. Mark Fisher, the brilliant cultural theorist who understood burnout before it became a buzzword, saw what you're experiencing isn't personal weakness or poor life management. It's the predictable result of capitalism colonizing not just your labor, but your consciousness itself. Rest doesn't heal you because your mind has been occupied by an economic system that never rests, never stops, never allows genuine recovery. Your exhaustion isn't a bug, it's a feature. Mark Fisher understood that capitalism has achieved something historically unprecedented. It has invaded and occupied the space inside your head. Previous forms of exploitation controlled your body during work hours, but late capitalism controls your mind 24/7. You are never truly off work because work has become a psychological condition rather than just a physical activity. Think about it. When was the last time you had a thought that wasn't somehow connected to productivity, optimization, or economic anxiety? Even your leisure time is structured by capitalist logic. You consume entertainment, you optimize your health, you invest in your relationships, you develop your personal brand. There's no outside to the market because the market has become psychological. Fisher called this capitalist realism, the condition where capitalism becomes not just an economic system, but the horizon of all possible experience. You can't rest because rest itself has been commodified. Your meditation app tracks your streaks and sends notifications. Your vacation is content for social media. Your hobbies become side hustles. Even your sleep is monitored and optimized for performance. The exhaustion you feel isn't just from working too much. It's from the impossibility of ever being truly idle. Idleness has become psychologically intolerable because capitalism has taught you that unproductive time is wasted time, that you should always be improving, optimizing, growing, achieving. Your mind has been colonized by what Fisher called anxious subjectivity, a state of perpetual alertness to opportunities and threats that might affect your economic position. This mental colonization operates through what Byung-Chul Han calls the achievement society. You're not just exploited by external forces. You've internalized the exploiter. You push yourself harder than any boss ever could because you've absorbed the logic that personal failure is always a result of insufficient effort, inadequate optimization, poor choices. You are your own most ruthless manager. Fisher saw that what we call depression under late capitalism is often not a mental illness, but a rational response to an irrational system. The famous depression epidemic isn't primarily about brain chemistry. It's about social conditions that make genuine happiness structurally impossible for most people. You feel depressed not because something is wrong with your brain, but because something is wrong with the world your brain has to navigate. You're trying to be happy in a system designed to generate perpetual dissatisfaction. You're trying to rest in a culture that treats rest as laziness. You're trying to find meaning in work that has been stripped of all meaning except profit generation. Fisher identified a specific form of depression he called depressive hedonia, the condition where you can still function, still consume, still produce value for capital, but you've lost the ability to experience genuine pleasure or authentic rest. You can binge Netflix for hours without ever truly relaxing. You can buy things without ever feeling satisfied. You can have sex without feeling connected. All your pleasures feel hollow because they're mediated by market logic. This is why rest doesn't restore you. Real rest requires the ability to step outside productive time, to exist without purpose, to be genuinely idle. But capitalism has made idleness psychologically impossible. Even when your body is still, your mind is racing with to-do lists, anxieties about the future, regrets about the past, comparisons with others who seem to be succeeding where you're failing. The depression of late capitalism isn't sadness, it's emotional flatness, the inability to feel much of anything authentic. You're not crying in despair, you're scrolling through your phone in a state of numb dissociation, consuming content that provides brief stimulation but no lasting satisfaction. What Fisher diagnosed as the colonization of consciousness has been perfected by the digital platforms that now mediate most of your waking experience. Social media isn't entertainment. It's a form of psychological warfare designed to capture and monetize your attention while preventing the deep focus that genuine rest requires. Your phone has become a portable anxiety generator, constantly interrupting your thoughts with notifications designed to trigger fear of missing out, social comparison, and addictive behavioral loops. You can't rest because your attention has been fragmented into tiny pieces, each piece captured and sold to advertisers who want to shape your behavior. The infinite scroll isn't designed to inform or entertain you. It's designed to prevent you from ever reaching a natural stopping point where you might genuinely rest. Every pause in stimulation becomes unbearable because your nervous system has been trained to expect constant input. Silence becomes anxiety-provoking. Stillness becomes restlessness. Fisher saw that this attention capture operates through what he called communicative capitalism, a system where all communication becomes a form of economic activity. Your personal expression becomes content creation. Your social relationships become networking. Your thoughts become posts, tweets, stories that generate data for algorithmic systems designed to predict and manipulate your future behavior. You can't rest because your mind has become a workplace where you're constantly producing value for platforms that sell your attention to advertisers. Even your most intimate thoughts are potentially monetizable content. The boundary between your inner life and economic activity has dissolved completely. What we call leisure under late capitalism isn't actually leisure. It's consumption disguised as rest. Real leisure would involve what the Greeks called otium, time that exists for its own sake, without purpose or productivity goals. But capitalism has made this kind of purposeless time psychologically intolerable. Look at how you spend your free time. You consume entertainment, which makes you a consumer. You exercise, which optimizes your human capital. You socialize, which builds your network. You learn new skills, which increases your market value. You travel, which creates content for social media. Even your hobbies become potential income streams. Side hustles, personal brands, monetized creativity. Fisher understood that genuine leisure requires what he called a certain aristocratic distance from need. You can't truly rest when you're constantly worried about money, status, optimization, or falling behind. But late capitalism has made this distance impossible for all but the ultra-wealthy. Everyone else lives in a state of perpetual economic anxiety that makes authentic leisure impossible. The rise of self-care culture perfectly illustrates this commodification of rest. Self-care isn't about genuine restoration. It's about optimizing yourself for better performance in the capitalist system. You take care of yourself not for its own sake, but to be more productive, more attractive, more successful. Even rest becomes a form of work. Work on yourself. This is why wellness culture often increases rather than decreases anxiety. You're not just tired. You're tired and guilty about being tired. You're not just stressed. You're stressed and stressed about being stressed. Every wellness practice becomes another thing to optimize, another area where you might be failing to achieve your full potential. Fisher saw that capitalism operates through what Paul Virilio called dromology, the logic of speed that accelerates social time beyond human capacity to process experience meaningfully. You can't rest because time itself has been weaponized against human psychological needs. The tempo of late capitalism is faster than human consciousness can handle. Information comes at you faster than you can process it. Decisions must be made faster than wisdom can develop. Responses are expected faster than reflection allows. This temporal acceleration creates a permanent state of cognitive overload that makes genuine rest impossible. Social media amplifies this acceleration exponentially. You're expected to have immediate opinions about constantly changing events. You must respond to messages quickly or risk social consequences. You need to stay updated on rapidly shifting cultural trends. The news cycle never stops. The content never ends. The demand for your attention never pauses. This creates what Fisher called chronic contemporaneity, a flattening of time where everything feels equally immediate and urgent. You lose the ability to distinguish between what genuinely requires immediate attention and what can wait. Everything feels urgent because the system is designed to make everything feel urgent. Rest requires what the Germans call Eigenzeit, your own time, time that moves at your natural rhythm rather than the rhythm demanded by capital. But capitalism has colonized even your experience of time, making it impossible to access your natural temporal rhythms. Fisher understood that neoliberalism isn't just an economic policy. It's a psychological condition that restructures human subjectivity to serve capital accumulation. You've been trained to think of yourself as a business that must constantly optimize its performance in competitive markets. You can't rest because you've internalized the logic of human capital. Your relationships become networking. Your skills become assets to develop. Your personality becomes a brand to manage. Your mental health becomes a resource to optimize. You are simultaneously the worker, the manager, and the product in your own personal economy. This internalization of market logic creates what Fisher called reflexive impotence, the condition where you know things are fucked but feel powerless to change them. You understand that the system is making you miserable, but you believe the solution lies in better personal management rather than systemic transformation. The result is endless self-optimization that never leads to satisfaction. You improve your productivity habits, but the demands increase. You enhance your skills, but the competition intensifies. You optimize your wellness routine, but the underlying conditions of stress remain unchanged. You're running faster and faster on a treadmill that's constantly accelerating. This is why individual solutions to systemic problems always fail. You can't rest your way out of a system designed to prevent rest. You can't meditate your way out of economic anxiety. You can't optimize your way out of a culture of optimization. The problem isn't your personal management skills. It's the system that makes rest impossible. Fisher taught in universities and witnessed how neoliberalism transformed education from a space of intellectual exploration into a factory for producing anxious, debt-laden subjects trained for economic precarity. The exhaustion you feel often begins in educational institutions that teach you to see yourself as human capital. From childhood, You're trained to see learning not as intrinsically valuable, but as investment in your future earning potential. Education becomes credentialing, knowledge becomes commodity, curiosity becomes optimization. You learn to think of your mind not as something to nurture for its own sake, but as a resource to develop for market competition. This instrumentalization of learning destroys what Fisher called popular modernism, the belief that culture and knowledge should be accessible to everyone for the sake of human flourishing rather than economic advantage. When everything becomes a means to economic ends, nothing has value in itself. The student debt system exemplifies this perfectly. You're forced to mortgage your future to pay for credentials that may or may not lead to economic security. You emerge from education already trained in the anxiety and optimization mindset that makes rest impossible. You've learned to see time not as something to be experienced, but as something to be invested. This educational conditioning creates what Fisher called depressive hedonia in young people, the ability to function and consume, but not to genuinely enjoy or rest. Students can binge entertainment for hours while remaining fundamentally anxious about their future economic prospects. Drawing on Michel Foucault's concept of biopolitics, Fisher saw that late capitalism doesn't just exploit your labor power. It manages your entire biological and psychological existence in service of capital accumulation. Your exhaustion is systematically produced and managed to maintain optimal levels of productivity and consumption. You're kept tired enough to be manageable, but not so tired that you can't function. Exhausted enough to avoid political resistance, but not so exhausted that you can't work and consume. The system requires your fatigue to maintain itself. Rested people are dangerous people because they have the mental clarity to see alternatives. This biopolitical management operates through what Byung-Chul Han calls psychopolitics, the control of psychological states rather than just physical bodies. Your mood, attention, desire, and energy levels are all modulated by systems designed to optimize your utility to capital while minimizing your capacity for genuine rest or resistance. Pharmaceutical companies profit from your exhaustion by selling stimulants to help you work and sedatives to help you sleep. Wellness companies profit by selling solutions to problems they help create. Tech companies profit by capturing attention they simultaneously fragment. The entire system depends on managing your fatigue rather than eliminating it. Fisher understood that genuine rest is inherently political because it requires stepping outside the logic of capital accumulation. Rest that truly restores you would make you less productive, less consumptive, less manageable. This is why the system works so hard to make authentic rest impossible. Real rest would involve what Walter Benjamin called messianic time, time that exists outside the linear progression of capitalist development. Time for genuine reflection, authentic relationship, creative expression that serves no market purpose. Time to imagine alternatives to the current system. This is why individual rest practices often fail to provide genuine restoration. Meditation apps still operate according to market logic, tracking progress, measuring outcomes, optimizing performance. Vacation time is still structured by consumer capitalism. Self-care routines still treat the self as a resource to be managed, rather than a being worthy of care for its own sake. Genuine rest would require what Fisher called communist desire, the ability to imagine and work towards social arrangements that prioritize human flourishing over capital accumulation. Rest becomes revolutionary when it refuses the logic of productivity and optimization that structures capitalist society. So here's the truth that Mark Fisher died trying to articulate. Your exhaustion isn't personal failure, it's systemic success. The system is working exactly as designed when you feel too tired to rest, too anxious to be idle, too colonized by market logic to imagine alternatives. Your mental fatigue is not a bug in late capitalism, it's its most essential feature. But recognizing this opens up revolutionary possibilities. When you understand that your inability to rest is politically produced, you can begin to see rest itself as a form of resistance. Not the commodified rest of wellness culture, but genuine idleness that refuses productive utility. Real rest requires collective action because individual solutions to systemic problems always fail. You can't meditate your way out of capitalism, but you might be able to organize your way towards social arrangements that make authentic rest possible for everyone. Fisher's analysis suggests that the fight for genuine rest is inseparable from the fight for a different kind of society, one that values human beings for their own sake rather than their economic utility. A society where time exists for human flourishing rather than capital accumulation. This doesn't mean rest is easy or that recognizing its political dimension immediately makes it accessible. The colonization of consciousness is deep and pervasive. But understanding why rest is so difficult under capitalism can help you stop blaming yourself for your exhaustion and start working with others to create conditions where genuine restoration becomes possible. The revolution might not begin with taking the means of production. It might begin with taking back the means of rest, reclaiming your mind from capitalist colonization, refusing the logic of optimization, choosing to exist without justifying that existence through productivity. Mark Fisher couldn't find this rest in his own life, and the system killed him for his clarity about its murderous nature. But his analysis remains a gift to those of us still struggling to find spaces of genuine restoration in a world designed to prevent them. Your exhaustion tells the truth about the system. Listen to it, honor it, and then work with others to build a world where rest doesn't have to be revolutionary, because it's simply human. The future depends not on your productivity, but on your ability to rest deeply enough to imagine that future. Stop trying to optimize your way to restoration. Start organizing your way to a society that makes restoration possible. Rest is resistance. Exhaustion is evidence. The revolution begins when you finally stop